everybody, and welcome to our Field Practicum Placement Orientation for the 2026-2027 academic year. My name is Tia Rowley, and I am the MSW Field Placement Coordinator for the Bear River and Logan region. Before we get started, I just want to offer congratulations to our foundation students and our advanced standing students who were just accepted into our program. And a great welcome back to our second year students. For our orientation today, I'm going to help you to understand what to expect from practicum placement, understand the placement process and the timeline, explore placement opportunities, help you to understand how to prepare your resume, provide a couple of interview tips, and learn about some funding that you might not be aware of. And then finally, we'll talk about creating success with a growth mindset. And as we talk about this today, it may be helpful for you to refer to the agency list that was sent out in an email for this presentation. So the first thing is that we want to make sure that you are prepared going into your program. So you will be required as a foundation student to complete 450 hours in your practicum, which breaks down to about 12 to 14 hours a week. For foundation or for advanced standing students, you'll be required to complete a total of 524 hours, which averages out to be about 16 to 18 hours a week. So basically, you're going to need about 2 full weekdays in order to complete your practicum hours. We have very limited evening and weekend opportunities, and those opportunities are very competitive. So make sure that you're planning your life now to allow you to be able to complete your hours as required during the weekdays. So for our orientation today, I will go over your roadmap to your MSW placement. There's 4 simple steps that you'll need to be aware of. Step 1 is completing the MSW placement questionnaire. Now you'll all either have already received the questionnaire link or you will be getting that very, very shortly. After that, step 2, you will meet with field faculty to review your questionnaire. So either me or another faculty member will reach out to talk with you and go over the questionnaire. And step 3, we will connect you with assigned agencies for interviews. Step 4, you'll complete and submit feedback about your preferences based on who you interviewed with. And then finally, placement decisions will be made by the end of the spring semester. So let's talk about step 1, completing the MSW field placement questionnaire. You'll provide us with really basic information, your name and contact information, and your city of residence. Some of you may not know for sure yet where you'll be residing when you start your program. And if that's the case for you, then please just let us know that in the comment section and give us a rough idea of where you think you might be. You'll also tell us your desired location for practicum. And it's really important for you to recognize as you're going into the program that many students have a desire for very specific placements, which might be limited in Cache Valley. So thinking about private practice or medical placements, and because these placements are in such high demand and in short supply, it isn't always possible to have students placed there. So even if you have a strong preference for a certain practicum experience, we cannot guarantee that you'll be matched with your preference. There may be availability for these placements in Weber and Davis counties, so you'll want to consider this when you're filling out the form. You also want to be flexible with your choices. Remember that this is an educational experience and it's not meant for you to specialize or to have a niche in when you graduate. So you will describe your career goals, any previous social work experience, whether it's paid or volunteer, and any specific skills you think would be beneficial for a practicum agency to know about you. You'll then rank your interest level in each placement category. And then you're going to list your top 5 agency choices in order of your preference. And I want to stop here for just a minute and also acknowledge that many students enter their MSW program so excited about clinical work and wondering when they'll be able to begin to provide therapy. And it's important to know that traditional clinical or therapy placements are not always available for foundation students and are pretty untypical for them to be placed, as a matter of fact. This isn't a program flaw, it's a purposeful part of your development as a professional social worker. And clinical agencies, especially therapy practices, generally ask for second year or advanced standing students who've actually already had a foundational coursework or experience. But please know that your foundation year placement will help you to be able to gain the meaningful skills that you need to be able to be prepared for clinical work. If you're in a foundation setting, you're still going to be building skills like micro-counseling skills. You'll develop skills for active listening, empathy, and reflection. You're going to work one-on-one with clients and build rapport. You might even be running some support groups or some psychoeducational groups. You're going to learn how to navigate certain systems like school systems or healthcare settings or correctional facilities. And you're going to advocate for clients within complex systems. And these are exactly the skills that prepare you to be an effective therapist for either future placements or for your postgraduate career. So as you rank your top 5 agency choices, foundation students may include one clinical option, but all students must include at least 3 different types of placement categories within your agency choices. So for example, if you're most interested in medical social work, you may list up to 2 medical agencies, but the other 3 agencies must represent different types of categories. We'll then ask you questions about being able to pass a background check, and you can express any concerns that you have about the placement process during the questionnaire. So it's really important as we move forward for you just to understand that every placement has value, and what you put into your education here is going to truly shape what you get out of it. So please be sure to complete the questionnaire thoroughly so that it gives us as much information as possible to help you get connected with the best possible placement for you. So let's talk about placement category examples. So we have school social work, which is all school levels and charter schools, child and family services, such as the Family Place. We work with correctional facilities like Nuke and Cache County Sheriff's Office. We also work with alcohol and substance abuse recovery at Bear River Health Department and community mental health settings like Bear River Mental Health, CAPSA, the I Institute, Family Services, and Utah Behavior Services. There are medical social work opportunities. There's a potential for disabilities, working with people with disabilities, also macro practice, private practice mental health, and residential behavioral health. And these are all examples only and are completely subject to change based on our community partners and their availability for this next year. So foundation students can expect placement opportunities in places such as domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, in medical social work settings, in macro settings or community development, in corrections facilities, school social work, a potential for working with vocational rehab, and also private practice and clinical, but those opportunities are very, very limited. For advanced students, our placement opportunities look like community mental health, family services, private practice or clinical settings, medical social work, community and macro development, school social work, substance use recovery centers, residential treatment facilities, for the iSystem Institute, and finally LDS Family Services and Veterans Affairs. So a quick note about LDS Family Services and the Veterans Affairs. Their application process is a lot different than ours, and it operates on a different timeline. These agencies typically open up their application process towards the end of January or February, and we'll let you know when those processes are open. And if you want to apply with either agency, it's critical that you let me know. Both agencies make decisions typically by February or March. And you also will need to notify me if you're offered an internship. And this is because I need to understand that you're exploring these opportunities. It will help me to just be able to plan for the placement process and just know what you're doing and what you're looking for. And then also just note that some of the opportunities with LDS Family Services and the VA, some of those placement opportunities are outside of Cache Valley. So just be prepared for that as you are considering your interests and looking at potentially being placed in either of those agencies. And that brings us to step 2 with your interviews with field faculty coordinators. So towards the end of January or early in February, you'll be meeting with one of us, either myself, Tammy Curtis, Tanya Comer, JC Sheen, Susan Egbert, or Denise Rice Pryor, depending on which campus and which program level you'll be enrolled in. These interviews usually last about 15 minutes, and this is where we will discuss your survey results and take note of any interests, concerns, and answer any questions that you might have about placement. So make sure that you provide accurate information in your survey because that helps us to make the best decision for your placement. Also, if the information in your survey changes, let's say your residence changes, or you were thinking that you were going to be able to drive out of the valley for your placement, but then your car is broken down and you're not really sure what that transportation is going to look like for next year, then that's a really good time to let us know that some of these things might have changed. After we meet with you for field faculty interviews, our field team will assign students to interview with a few different agencies. We average about 2 to 4 interviews per student, and this also depends on the interviews that are available per agency. And again, if communication or if circumstances change, then it's so important that you let us know about any of this throughout the placement process. So step 3 is a super exciting time for all of you where you get to connect with your assigned agencies for your interviews. So you'll receive a list of agencies to contact probably towards the end of February. Now it's really important for you to know not to contact agencies without approval from the field education team. And also for you to know that you are not to go out and to find your own placement. So once your interviews are assigned, you'll be provided with the contact information for the person at the agencies that you're assigned to interview with. You'll then create a resume and a letter of interest. And you really need to think about creating a positive interview experience. Your interviews are far more than just steps in this placement process. This is where you're going to begin to shape your professional identity. Every supervisor that you meet might be someone that is a colleague for you in the future, a reference for you later on. So these conversations and these interviews are really going to help you to begin to build your network. And it gets your name out there. Agencies do talk to each other, and they often share who showed professionalism, who was prepared, and who they'd be excited to work again with in the future. So even if the agency that you're interviewing with isn't your top choice placement, you want to use that interview as a place for you to practice, place for you to show up prepared, engaged, and curious. And remember that strong interviews can create opportunities for you long after the placement process is over. So reach out to schedule your interviews immediately after you've been notified. You'll be given a deadline of when to complete the interviews by, which is typically about 3 to 4 weeks. And reaching out immediately demonstrates professionalism. It's important that you really think about that and recognize that many of the agencies have such busy schedules and they need advance notice in order to be able to schedule your interview. And putting them in a bind, contacting them last minute is really unprofessional, and they actually aren't required to interview you if you don't take action in a timely manner. As you're interviewing with your agencies, you're going to want to build a graduate social work internship resume. So a couple of key points to think about is keeping your resume clean and concise. Don't add any non-essential graphics. Don't make it look busy. Provide your contact information, name, email, address, and phone number. When you're completing your education portion, then you would include Master of Social Work in progress and your expected graduation date. You could include any relevant coursework that you've taken, like human behavior in the social environment, trauma and resilience, or social policy and social justice. You'll want to go ahead and provide a skills summary and highlight any case management, crisis intervention, any cultural humility skills that you might have, advocacy, your ability to provide documentation, how you engage in a team setting, etc. You'll also want to talk about any experience that you have, whether that's paid or volunteered. Even practicum experience is helpful for people to know as they're interviewing you for this process. And then finally, include any certifications or trainings that you have, such as CPR, even mental health first aid, QPR, motivational interviewing. Perhaps you have a SSW license. Those are all good things to include in your resume. And then as you're thinking about your resume, you'll really want to make sure that you create a resume per agency. Doing this is going to demonstrate your professionalism. It's going to help you to tailor your resume to each resume and what their mission statement is, and showing how your values align with their mission. And then you'll also want to consider writing a letter of interest to accompany your resume. Now, what if you don't have social work experience? You can think about ways to translate experience into social work skills. So if you have retail experience, you can talk about your communication skills, problem-solving skills, or working with diverse populations. If you have a history of working in childcare, you can talk about your behavior management skills, empathy, or your developmental awareness skills. If you've worked in administration in the past, you can think about your organization skills, documentation, any confidentiality that you've had to uphold, and your attention to detail. And from volunteer work, you can talk about your advocacy work, community engagement, and any collaboration that you've done in the past. So just really align your skills with what social work looks like, and also align your resume with the agency's mission. So it's really important as you're doing your interviews and also creating your resume that you read the agency's website and mission statement. Highlight any of the related skills, populations, or values that you have that align with the agency's mission, any trauma-informed work, community support, empowerment, etc. And mention again relevant coursework or interest in your objective or your summary statement. So an example of a summary statement would be MSW student passionate about community mental health with experience supporting individuals in crisis, strong communication skills, and commitment to social justice. Preparing for your interview. Demonstrate professionalism and be on time. Respond to emails promptly. Dress professionally. Avoid slang language and use professional language. These are all simple but powerful ways for you to communicate respect and readiness. Highlight positions that you have helped individuals with problem solving. Supervisors want to hear examples of how you've supported others, even if it's not in a formal role, but it's something that you've been able to do in a real world setting. So you might want to think about experience you've had when you're helping a family member or a friend or volunteer work or highlighting some of your strengths. Express your interests and be honest about what excites you about social work. Agencies really appreciate hearing your genuine interests and your educational goals. And then finally, consider sending a quick thank you card or email. It sends a strong message of professionalism and leaves positive final impression. A couple more interview tips are, again, knowing the agency. We've talked about that already. Practice your introduction. So, never been to an interview yet where they haven't said, tell me about yourself, right? So you want to highlight your education, any relevant experience, what draws you to social work, and what your hobbies are. And also anticipate common questions. So maybe you might be asked, what are your learning goals for this internship? Or tell me about a challenge you faced and how you've handled it. Or what are your strengths and areas for growth? These are all common questions that you might be asked during your interview. And then you might want to think about what questions you should ask during the interview. You might want to ask the agency about their supervision style or what you can expect to get from supervision. This is a great time for you to ask about potential schedule and hours that are available, if there's compensation provided. This is a great time again to ask about the types of activities or tasks that you might be able to engage in. Finally, just learning and getting to know a little bit more about your supervisor, just asking them, why do you enjoy hosting a student? That might tell you a lot about them. And then step 4, submit your feedback about your interviews. Remember to be flexible. Keep an open mind and know that sometimes the best learning experiences really come from placements that you didn't expect. And rank your interest in placement with the agencies interviewed. Your rankings are going to help us match you with an agency that you're interested in. That's the hope, that's the plan, the goal. So be thoughtful and honest about your preferences and provide thorough feedback. Share information with us about what stood out to you. Maybe the agency culture or the supervision style or the population served. The more detail that you provide, the better that we can support you. And then finally, we receive your feedback from not only from you as a student, but we also receive feedback from the agencies. And the agencies can share their impressions with us based on the students they interviewed. And we really do weigh both sides of this when we're making final placements. Even if you rank an agency very high, an agency may not rank you as high, and we do have to consider their placement preferences. So placement decisions are finalized by the end of spring semester. And at that point, it's really unlikely that placements will change. You will know where you're going to be placed before the semester ends. Immediately then work with your AFI or your supervisor to obtain information about background checks, completing any other initial requirements, especially as we're going into summer. Many of you might not be around for the summer, and it's important that you understand what might be required of you before you start your placement. You can start as early as July 15th for onboarding or agency training, and you can receive up to 30 hours of practicum hours before you start school on August 31st. And some agencies offer trainings or orientations over the summer, and you're welcome to begin those before the fall semester. You just need to make sure that you're not using or seeing clients one-on-one. During that time, you cannot see clients one-on-one and provide services until you start school, but you are absolutely welcome to go ahead and start shadowing before then. And then finally, just a note, if you're seeking a placement outside of the Bear River region, this placement process will probably look a little bit different, but the survey will still be into play. So that is, again, still really important for you to provide us with an accurate information from the survey. In case you weren't aware, there is a funding opportunity available. It's called the Public Mental Health and Substance Use Funding Grant. This is a grant that provides up to 2 years of support or $10,000 annually. And in order for you to receive funding, you must be placed in a Tier 1 or Tier 2 agency. First tier agencies are places such as Bear River Mental Health, Medicaid providers. Bear River Health Department are the first tier agencies. Second tier agencies are places that offer, again, to vulnerable populations, schools, domestic violence shelters, VA, again, agencies that are serving Medicaid eligible and financially vulnerable and underserved populations are these Tier 2 agencies. And if you need more information about qualifying agencies, please visit the website. It's also important to understand that private for-profit agencies are not going to qualify for this grant. And for every $5,000 that's awarded, it actually requires 12 months of employment post-graduation in a qualifying agency, not necessarily the agency that your placement is completed in, but you'd still have to be employed in either a Tier 1 or Tier 2 agency. And if you don't pay back, or if you don't complete the employment requirement, then you will have to pay back your award plus the interest. The PMHSU grant funding decisions are made late in the summer. And so as you're filling out your questionnaire, make sure that you indicate if you are interested in the PMHSU grant. And there's the QR code for you if you are interested in finding out more information. So again, approach with growth mindset, and remember that you're not allowed to obtain your own placement outside of the placement process. This actually ensures fairness and maintains our strong relationships with the agencies that we're partnered with, and we handle all of the placement coordination. And it's possible, again, that you might not get your preferred placement, but keep an open mind, and it's going to be really helpful to you to learn and to find new opportunities. You're also required to interview with all of the agencies that are assigned to you. Each interview will help us to gather information that ensures the matching process and to make sure that we are being as accurate as possible when we're finalizing placements. Every placement provides valuable learning. Remember that practicum is the preparation for the profession, not for specialization. The growth mindset is so key to your practicum experience. So your responsibility in the field placement process, along with what we've already talked about, is again notifying us right away if anything shifts, like your schedule, availability, or any of your circumstances. Make sure you're following the placement process as instructed. Communicate changes promptly, right? So if you decide to defer or withdraw, please let us know as early as possible so that we know not to be seeking a placement for you. And also realize that the placement process is a commitment. So don't make side deals. Don't be seeing what maybe USU can offer you, whereas maybe another program that you've applied for is also kind of looking at you or has offered you a placement, and you're waiting to see who offers you the best placement. Don't do that. That's unprofessional, and it really puts us in a bind. So be thinking about that if that's something that's coming up for you. And also share any life circumstances such as moving, pregnancy, anything like that that might affect your ability to perform or to travel in your practicum. Provide accurate information in your surveys, in your interviews and resumes. Let us know early if you're relocating, something or other circumstances that might affect your ability to commute to your practicum placement. Go prepared to your interviews. We've talked about that already. And demonstrate professional use of self. Be mindful of how you show up. Be mindful of your communication, your boundaries, self-awareness, and ability to reflect. All of these things really matter, right, when you're showing up for your practicum interviews and in class. So it's now time for you to complete the 2026 MSW Placement Questionnaire. Please remember the due date that is reflected in the email, and you can scan the QR code or use this link in order to help you to get to the survey. And if for some reason this doesn't work for you, please let me know. Just reach out, let me know, and I'm happy to connect you with the survey. So here we go. The adventure begins for your graduate year. I am so excited again to work with all of you. And I hope that you found this presentation to be insightful into the placement process. And remember, we work really hard to match you to your preferences, but they're not guaranteed. We understand the placement process is important to you, and remember that you will get a good experience regardless of where you're placed. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything I can do to support you in the practicum placement process. I wish you all the best, and I am excited to see you over the next few months. Take care.